Xiaolan seeks employment opportunities, but Maomao is hesitant to recommend her to any shady connections or the perilous courtesan industry. In the rear palace where they reside, illnesses can easily spread, making sanitation a pressing concern. Fortunately, Shisui mentions a potential job opportunity at the large bathhouse in the rear palace, which also serves as a means of maintaining the cleanliness of their community. The trio sets off to explore this possibility, enjoying the empty baths and hoping for a brighter future. After a hard day's work in the baths, 3 companions are relaxing on the railing out front. A lady-in-waiting gifted them a small fabric pouch filled with candy, which Xiaolan promptly enjoyed. While they unwind, they discuss their careers as consorts and the tactics they use to extend their contracts. Meanwhile, Maomao is known to consort Jokuyu for overhearing interesting conversations. They soon hear rumors about pregnancies and the creation of new eunuchs in the palace. Xiaolan expresses interest in a cool eunuch, much to Maomao's dismay. Suddenly, Consort Lishu and her lady-in-waiting arrive, causing the trio to wonder why they're there. Maomao senses 3 new girls staring at her while snacking. They were sisters, and she struggles to remember their names. Haku-u, the elder sister, asks Maomao how she came to serve in the Jade Pavilion and why Jokuyu trusts her. After their chat, Maomao invites the youngest sister, Seki-u, to the baths with Xiaolan and Shisui later. Maomao brings beauty supplies for the hair removal work they would do there. Upon arriving, the 3 girls and other palace women are seen enjoying massages. Maomao and Seki-u head to the bathhouse, but Seki-u is embarrassed about the custom of wearing only aprons. Shisui teases Seki-u by removing her robe, but Maomao and Xiaolan find it unnecessary, as Seki-u had nothing to be embarrassed about. Seki-u is from the dry lands to the west, where water is a precious resource, and had to ask for special permission to use the bathhouse. Maomao realizes that Seki-u's reticence stems from her unfamiliarity with bathing. Meanwhile, Consort Lishu makes her way to the public bathhouse, accompanied by her chief lady-in-waiting. Maomao notices Lishu has not properly removed hair from certain areas and offers to do it differently. Lishu accepts, and Maomao ensures she does the best job she can. The chief lady-in-waiting was once a tormentor of the consort, but now an ally. Maomao decided to treat her skin, but faced resistance in sensitive areas. Afterwards, they cooled off and enjoyed some juice, while other ladies attended to the other consorts. Maomao asked about the reason for the chief lady's presence, and learned of a ghost in the Diamond Pavilion's bath that left both women pale. Maomao decided to involve herself in a matter concerning one of the upper consorts, despite Seki-u's disapproval. When Jinshi asked for her help in investigating a ghost that appeared in one of the consort's chambers, Gyokyu's curiosity couldn't be contained. Jinshi, however, made it clear that it was a matter of utmost secrecy and asked for Maomao's help. The group went to the Diamond Pavilion to investigate and found the consort entertainingly easy to read. During the investigation, Maomao couldn't help but think about Jinshi's terrible secret that she discovered on a hunting trip, that he wasn't a eunuch. A certain Lady Lishu claimed to have seen a mysterious figure through the open window, but the other ladies-in-waiting simply dismissed it as her seeking attention. While enjoying some almond cookies and tea, Lishu finally told her story of the ghostly, round-faced figure that smiled and stared at her while she was changing. Maomao couldn't help but think the layout of the area was off. Why was there a storage room next to a bath? Canon explained that it used to be something else, but they had to convert it due to mold issues. But something about the wall that had rot and the window next to it stood out to Maomao. She couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off, but she couldn't put her finger on it just yet. Maomao went to the bathing area and found a small hole at the bottom of the tub, which led to an old sewer system. She realized that the sewer system ran directly under the storage room's floor and caused it to rot due to hot water passing through it. Maomao then discovered a brass mirror covered in storage for a long time that could produce a ghostly image with the reflection of light. The mirror was important to Consort Lishu, as it reminded her of her mother who loved dancing. However, the mirror was taken by a lady-in-waiting who wanted it for herself. When the lady-in-waiting failed to recognize Lishu's grief, Lishu reached out and caught her sleeve. Consort Lishu demands her mirror back from her lady-in-waiting, who protests. Jinshi steps in to criticize the lady-in-waiting's behavior and reveals that she is overstepping her station by wearing a high consort's crest. His gentle tone masks his true intentions, making him quite scary. The lady-in-waiting crumples to the floor and the others turn pale. Maomao is impressed by Jinshi's display of power. Maomao, the kitten, begs for fish, while Maomao, the apothecary, asks the quack doctor about eunuchs. The doctor reveals the only way for a man to enter the rear palace as a eunuch is to undergo an inspection from 3 officials. They used to check visually, but now they feel for anything there during every visit. Meanwhile, Jinshi's attendant Gao Shun urges him to make a decision about the apothecary girl. Lahan, the strategist, is an unknown quantity and someone to avoid, but Gao Shun suggests bringing Maomao under their fold to fight poison with poison. Jinshi recalls the oily snacks that Lahan would eat in the office, causing his papers to be greasy. Gao Shun wants Maomao to know the truth behind their positions and lineage, despite being terrified of her reaction. Jinshi handles rear palace work, with many complaints from the female consorts and reports of palace ladies pursuing the new eunuchs. Jinshi observes the new eunuchs working, noticing the trauma they've experienced. Jinshi is approached by 2 familiar palace women, one of whom is a friend of Maomao's. A cart carrying precious ice overturns, causing chaos. Jinshi tries to figure out what to do next. Xiaolan, a young girl sold into the rear palace, crashes into a cart full of valuable ice meant for a high consort. Maomao, a fellow palace resident, suggests creating a substitute for the ruined ice and enlists the help of the mischievous Jinshi. Maomao's good intentions earn her Jinshi's conditions for help, including listening when he talks and not wearing hair ties. Will Maomao be able to meet his demands and save Xiaolan's livelihood? The plot thickens. Maomao has to work and is scolded for not being fashionable. Jinshi orders her to wear a hair stick and promises to reward her if it looks good. Maomao and Xiaolan make ice cream in the kitchen for the consort, but Shisui shows up and eats it all. However, Maomao is resilient and begins making more. Consort Gyokuyu's belly moved, prompting Princess Lingli to yell in excitement. Maomao was watching closely, ensuring the young princess didn't do anything naughty. Gyokuyu stated that babies develop a personality before birth and that this baby kicks downward. Maomao suggested examining the baby's position, which revealed an 80% chance of a breech birth. Gyokuyu considered ways to remedy the situation, including moxibustion and exercise. However, in a worst-case scenario, they may have to cut Gyokuyu open. Maomao considered bringing in a competent physician, but ultimately had another idea in mind. Consort Gyokuyu seeks medical help for her safety, and Maomao suggests her adoptive father, Luomen, a skilled doctor. However, Hongyang opposes the idea due to Luomen's criminal status. Gyokuyu considers it and welcomes trustworthy help. Luomen arrives at the rear palace and surprises Maomao's colleagues with his normal appearance. Life was fun and easy at the medical office. The quack joked around while Luomen, the genius doctor, focused on other matters. Maomao was busy with her daily tasks, including preparing the mugwort for moxibustion. Her father, a criminal, was also there, but was often called away to treat the consorts in the palace. Luomen was always thinking ahead and found a way to get paper from the quack, which he proposed Maomao suggest to the Practical Studies Institute for writing practice. Maomao grabbed some bottles of alcohol and sleeping medicine, but was interrupted by the kitten, who scratched her skirt. She wondered if this was really what she wanted. Maomao refused to give the precious herbs to the kitten, despite its doting caretakers. She left the medical office and headed to the school to ask for Jinshi's approval of her father's plan. On her way, she remembered the hair stick that had caused her trouble earlier. At the school, she sought out the eunuch, who oversaw the shrine for would-be emperor's lineage. The eunuch was impressed with her father's handwriting on the paper she presented and agreed to let the school use it for writing practices. The paper contained a list of cautions, including a remark about toxic face powder, which reminded Maomao of something her father had published years ago. She left in a hurry without accepting the eunuch's offer of tea. Maomao visits the clinic and notices the old women who have been there for years. She offers up some homemade disinfectant and starts a conversation with Shenlu. The conversation reveals that the women are stuck in the rear palace and unable to leave. Maomao begins to suspect that the clinic may have been involved in Lihua's poisoning. She decides not to accuse them, fearing that it may put the women in danger. Maomao realizes that the women in the palace harbor resentment towards her, but she can't do anything about it. As she contemplates leaving, she notices a bookcase and decides to borrow a book. Inside the book, she finds a picture of a foreign butterfly and realizes that it might be connected to her friend Shisui. Suddenly, a eunuch enters the room and warns Shenlu to be careful. It turns out to be Suirei, the woman who had died and been resurrected using the drug that Maomao had made. She holds Maomao and Shisui hostage, threatening to harm Shisui if Maomao tries anything. Suirei asked what Maomao wanted, and she replied by questioning if they would leave the place alive if they left. Suirei assured they will and requested Maomao to join her. Maomao was hesitant, since she knew that leaving the palace would result in punishment. Suirei tried to soothe her by calling her curious about the resurrection drug. This made Maomao certain that Suirei was not someone to underestimate. In the capital, there were rumors of a Tanuki to the west and a fox to the east. The Tanuki, son-in-law of the ruler of Shihokushu, held favor with the empress regnant. Meanwhile, the fox, known as the strategist, was a prominent figure in Li's military headquarters. Basin, accompanied by a masked body double, encountered the two. Despite feeling nervous, they accepted an invitation to drink with Lahan, the strategist. He revealed a plan for the latest Feifa firearm, which had been used in an attack on Basin's real master during a hunt. Lahan showed Basin and Shishu a new weapon with a flint trigger, quipping about how it could revolutionize the army. They discussed how criminals procured such weapons, but Shishu's people were unsuccessful in finding any information. Lahan then shifted the topic to a game of Go he played with his wife, much to Basin's confusion. Later, Basin and the masked lord, revealed to be the former pure consort, Duo, spoke alone about Maomao, the strategist's daughter who had gone missing. Basin fretted about the consequences of her illegitimate birth being revealed. Jinshi receives a letter from the Jade Pavilion stating that Maomao has not returned. When he arrives at the palace, no one seems to know where she is. They discuss possible reasons for her disappearance and retrace her steps. Luomen reminds Jinshi that Maomao had been particularly close to the palace cat, and they decide to go find her. Luomen suspects that the cat might lead them to Maomao. They find the cat, and Luomen notices that she has been eating dried berries. He believes that these berries might lead them to Maomao. Luomen, another eunuch, joined them and uncovered a hidden message from the cat. It contained a clue directing them to a shrine, but the second character was illegible. They consulted with the ladies of the palace, who disagreed on what the character could be. Despite the mystery, Luomen remained calm and collected, reminding Jinshi of how he once went a year without hearing from his daughter. Meanwhile, Consort Gyokuyu's food taster was being discussed, but it seemed Suiren wasn't a popular choice. The group debated the meaning behind a mysterious symbol. Seki-u remembered a maid named Shisui, prompting Jinshi to order his eunuchs to find her. Later, they discovered a shrine leading to a hidden tunnel. Additionally, they found that there were no women registered in the rear palace with the name Shisui, and a new eunuch was missing. The mystery deepens. Maomao and Shisui find themselves on a ship, dressed in simple clothes and being guarded by Suirei, disguised as a procurer. They are being taken to an unknown location, with Maomao hoping her note to her father will be found. The group changes vessels twice before eventually arriving in a forest with guards accompanying them. Maomao notices Suirei's fear of snakes and becomes suspicious. It turns out that Shisui and Suirei knew each other before, with Shisui having a higher class education than she lets on. Maomao confronts them about their past, but Suirei seems unbothered by her discovery. Maomao was unsure of Shisui's motives and suspected that she may be a spy. Shisui had a hidden agenda and had been carefully pretending to be a mere maid. They arrived at a hidden village that was built near a hot spring. Maomao bumped into a child who knew Shisui and Suirei. They were there for a festival and planned to get a lantern. Suirei knew about the presence of an emissary and led them to a luxurious inn. They were given a grand room with 2 bedrooms and a living space. The single bedroom was for the master and the other for the servants. Shisui asked Maomao to come with her to the courtyard. There, they found the little kid ordering around maids for a fox mask and bundles of flowering plants. Shisui picked up a lantern plant, and the little kid thanked her for working hard to find it. Maomao observed them and decided to start painting a fox mask. The kid showed a better side, and perhaps Maomao could call him a brat instead of a little shit. Jinshi and a group of eunuchs head to the palace where consort Gyokuyu is expected to give birth any day. Maomao's adoptive father is present, but the baby hasn't arrived yet, and there is concern about the possibility of a breech birth. Despite the tension in the air, Jinshi manages to appear calm and inquire about consort Gyokuyu's condition. The elderly man present gives him an update, stating that Maomao's treatments have helped and there is no imminent danger. The doctor present seems more of a hindrance than a help, but at least he distracts Princess Lingli with his cat. After leaving the palace, Jinshi learns that one of the eunuchs who disappeared, Tian, may have been seen praying at a particular shrine. He heads there to investigate, discovering an older woman with a strong smell of alcohol. He grabs her wrist, suspicious of her presence. Jinshi acted impulsively and grabbed a palace woman's arm to ask about Maomao, the befreckled palace woman. Shenlu, the woman he grabbed, knew something and immediately became fearful. She spoke of an old memory that referred to someone with a voice like honey and a face like a celestial nymph. But she was also angry and asked why Jinshi pretended to be a eunuch. Confused, Jinshi let go of Shenlu's arm, and she drank a bottle of strong alcohol from Maomao that led to her collapsing. Jinshi realized that he had to find a missing eunuch, a child of a serving woman named Taihu, and thought Taihu might be related to Lulan's mother. He went to the Garnet Pavilion, where Consort Lulan resided, and the place was overflowing with ostentatious exoticism. He wondered why the consort and her attendants dressed in such outrageous ways. Jinshi knew that Lulan understood her place as a high consort and Shishu's daughter. Jinshi noticed something off about Lulan's ladies-in-waiting and decided to confront her. He discovered that the woman in front of him was not Lulan, but a lady-in-waiting posing as her. He demanded to know where the real Lulan was, but the impostor had no answers. Despite the protection of her ladies, Jinshi's eunuchs removed them from his way. The fake Lulan trembled and even lost control of her bladder. Where was the real Lulan hiding? Jinshi shows violence towards the fake Lulan, and it wasn't like him at all. The emperor allowing officials to bring their daughters to the rear palace had its benefits, yet their daughters were like hostages there. It was clear that Shishu doted on Lulan, but she violated certain standards which forced her to flee. The lady-in-waiting who helped Lulan claims that she won't be coming back, leaving Jinshi with even more questions. Meanwhile, Master Lakan charged the rear palace, and Shishu's whereabouts are still unknown. Jinshi's office is a state of emergency as they try to find out the truth about Shenlu and the conspiracy against the throne. A visitor arrives in the form of Khan Lahan with a scroll that surprises Jinshi. A list of receipts had revealed an intriguing pattern that even officials of different affiliations could access if they followed the proper procedures. Lahan showed Jinshi some numbers that revealed the expenses of a particular government organ had grown larger over the past few years. The price of grain had been rising steadily, but there had been no drought or insect plague. Lahan suspected someone was keeping the difference for themselves. The price of metal had also been increasing, possibly due to a visible project requiring a lot of material. Lahan offered to help Jinshi examine the circulation of currency and asked for a favor in return, the bill for repairing a wall of the rear palace, which Lahan had burst through. Maomao dons a pure white jacket and a red skirt for the fox deity-worshipping festival. She wears a fox mask and travels to the edge of town while carrying a lantern decorated with pampas grass and rice stalks. Along the way, she meets Shisui, who wears a green-eyed Tanuki mask and helps Maomao with hers. The two discuss the fox deity and its origin from a tribe of foreign people who settled in the area. They explain how the white foxes of the village take on color through their descendants' intermarriage, and how the male villagers cannot distinguish colors well, resulting in many green-eyed masks. They snack on toxic lantern plant berries, a common ingredient in abortifacients used by prostitutes. People from the west fled here, and some became the ancestors of the current emperor, while others founded a village in the north. Maomao and Shisui walked towards the shrine, where street stalls and the aroma of meat on skewers could be found. Shisui spat out the remains of a disgusting fruit into the grass, and they stopped to eat at a stall selling skewers of meat, including chicken, frog, and locust. They met Seki-u at the shrine where he sat in place of the god, and Maomao gave him a ripe ear of rice. They watched as the masks were burned along with the watchtower, which also contained the raft where the watchtower rested, and the remaining masks were said to sink to the bottom of the water and nourish future blessings. Suare, Maomao, and Shisui return to their inn, where Suire serves them soy milk and fried bread. They discuss the resurrection drug, with Suire revealing that the original formula was meant to create slaves and that they have only tested it on animals. Maomao tries to convince Suire to let her be the test subject, but is denied due to being a hostage. The next morning, Suire leaves on an errand, leaving a guard to watch Maomao. Shisui dresses Maomao, and they chat while Seki-u annoys them. They discuss the origin of the resurrection drug and Seki-u's background before continuing their day. As Shisui tended to Maomao's hair, she remarked on the intricate hairpin Maomao had received. It was worth a lot due to the skilled craftsmanship, and could even be traced back to its maker. Maomao couldn't bear to sell it or melt it down for its metal, but it still felt like something was missing. She learned about Shisui's past as a maid who had been beaten if she didn't do her job well. Despite feeling bored and restless cooped up in her room, Maomao couldn't escape due to the guard watching her. As she looked out the window over the village, she noticed a patch of rice that hadn't been harvested fully and suspected that the field belonged to the chief, who wouldn't pay to have the unused storehouse knocked down. Her curiosity got the best of her, but the guard outside made it difficult for her to go investigate. Seki-u, the mischievous boy who had led her to the village, suggested that it wasn't impossible to get there. Maomao and Seki-u discover a secret room behind a chest of drawers in Seki-u's room. Seki-u then shows Maomao a balcony that leads to a separate building behind the inn, which she could use to escape. Once outside, Maomao investigates a patch of unharvested rice and suspects that the constant light on it may have affected its growth. They enter a disused storehouse and find rats in cages accompanied by papers covered with notes and dried herbs, as well as Feifa guns like the ones the assassins used. Suddenly, they hear footsteps approaching and hide in the room. It turns out to be the woman who hosted the banquet, along with others, including Suire. Maomao recognizes a woman's accent, but as she starts to leave the room, the woman suddenly draws out a sword and throws it at Maomao. An older woman arrives wearing loud makeup and clothing, who Maomao identifies as Lady Shenmei. Shenmei recognizes Seki-u as Shiru's son and decides to bring him and Maomao along. Maomao and Suire arrive at a fortress after a half-day carriage ride. Maomao is put in a room and Suire informs her that she never intended to bring her there. Shenmei and Lulan discover Maomao in the storehouse, discussing Maomao's crested herbs. Lulan is identified as Consort Lulan, who had been in Maomao's class. Shenmei suggests whipping Maomao, but Lulan intervenes, suggesting Maomao become the new apothecary as the previous one failed to find the elixir of immortality. Shenmei reluctantly agrees and takes Maomao to a storage room. Maomao and Suirei talk, and Maomao learns that Shenmei took Suirei's name and hates her. Maomao suspects Jinshi of having high influence and could have possibly helped Shenmei get into the rear palace. Maomao ponders how Jinshi managed to sneak into the rear palace and suspects he may have had help. She also contemplates the possibility of war and spies. Meanwhile, she amuses herself by rifling through a trunk of books. She hears children's voices outside her room and realizes the danger they are in. Maomao's heart is heavy as she considers the grim fate that awaits anyone associated with a rebellion against the emperor. A fox-eyed man named Lahan arrived at Jinshi's office with news of the Shi clan's suspicious activity. He pointed to an abandoned fortress on a map, which they speculated was being rebuilt for treasonous purposes. However, their meeting was interrupted by Lahan, a monocled strategist who demanded the immediate rescue of his kidnapped daughter. Lahan also urged Jinshi to mobilize the army against the rebel Shishu. Tensions rose in the office, but a stooped old man named Luomen intervened and calmed the situation. Ultimately, Lahan's request for army mobilization was significant as he held the title of Grand Commandant. The Shi clan had been producing new Feifa for years and was proven to be corrupt. This meant war, which was difficult for the kind-hearted Dr. Luomen to accept. Lahan tasked Jinshi to root out the corruption, but it would require the Forbidden Army, commanded by the Emperor. Lahan exposed Jinshi's true identity, leaving him to face the consequences. Maomao visits Shenmei's luxurious room daily to inquire about her medicine. One day, she meets Seki-u, who asks about his mother in the room. Maomao returns to her room and continues her work on drugs while experimenting on rats. She receives a note from a child to run away with the help of distraction from the guard. Maomao is trapped in the Stronghold, where the guard watches over her every move. Seki-u attempts to free her, but fails, resulting in their discovery. Shenmei, the cruel and sadistic woman, arrives and orders Maomao to be punished for her disobedience. Shenmei also punishes the guard for his failure. Suirei, who has a sense of duty towards Maomao, tries to protect her but fails to do so. Lulan suggests using something significant, which raises Maomao's curiosity. Maomao is taken to a circular room in the Stronghold's basement where she encounters a form of punishment named Taibon, which involves being put in a hole with creatures like the ones writhing inside the wooden box. Maomao recognizes the creatures, and despite their danger, she finds them beautiful and amusing. She takes out her hairpin and releases an innumerable parade of snakes and poisonous bugs. The guards are left stunned by her reaction. Maomao used the hairpin given to her by Shisui as a skewer to cook the snake meat she had caught. Despite wanting some salt or soy paste to accompany it, she found it satisfying and full of nutrients. As she enjoyed her meal, a guard entered the room and was surprised to see her cooking and eating snakes. Maomao found it amusing how he wished she had just said it was fish instead. She had caught the snakes with ease, due to the slow movements caused by the low room temperature, and had even killed the venomous ones. Maomao sat on top of the box they were kept in and scattered ashes around it to prevent the harmless snakes from approaching her. She was always prepared with medicine in her robes and decided to use pungent herbs to create a makeshift fire instead of tobacco. The guard couldn't believe his eyes when he saw Maomao alive and revealed that Suirei and the brat had sent him to rescue her. He warned her of a coming army of vengeance signaled by smoke and advised her to avoid the basement where dangerous activities were taking place, but she ignored him and headed down. There, Maomao discovered a group of men making fire powder from animal feces, and the explosion that followed when Lulan arrived was deafening. Maomao helped Lulan escape, who revealed how her mother had painted her face and treated her like a doll. Lulan shares with Maomao the reason behind her sister Shenmei's bitterness towards her. Shenmei had accused Lulan's mother and child of being a fool and called Lulan's sister a whore. Lulan's sister, who is also Suirei's mother, was later said to have died alone and forlorn in the rear palace. Lulin had often visited her sister in disguise and, despite the abuse from Shenmei, was able to see her sister. Lulin reveals to Maomao that her parents' marriage was simply to have her and continue the bloodline of the hidden village. Maomao questions Shisui about substances designed to induce miscarriages and discovers that Shisui consumes them herself. In a room filled with children, Maomao discovers that they have been poisoned, and Shisui admits to it out of fear that they will be discovered and executed. Shisui talks about her mother Shenmei and her hatred towards her sister, and reveals a surprising tidbit about Maomao's background. Maomao understands why Shisui brought her here, and despite her lack of understanding in politics, all she wants is to learn more about medicine and create new drugs. Shisui insists on leaving to play her own role, leaving Maomao in an emotional state. As she leaves, Maomao offers a prayer and gives her a hair stick, which Shisui accepts with laughter. The building shakes with the sound of explosions. Jinshi finds himself in a massive carriage with Lahan and Lahan, the latter of whom had helped save his neck. Lahan is worried, but Lahan acts as a helpful check on him. They discuss plans for an upcoming attack on a stronghold where firearms are being produced. Jinshi's forces need to take out the powder depot to deny the enemy the use of their cannons. Gaoshun brings attention to the fact that their army could be ambushed by the Forbidden Army. Jinshi, struggling to remember his true identity, agrees with Lahan's plan. Gaoshun reminds him that he needs to change how he interacts with a young lady, and Jinshi feels a sense of responsibility to rescue her. Jinshi shivers in the cold, donning his white hooded cloak. In the middle of the night, Shishu hears explosions and grabs his sword. He couldn't sleep, even with his status as the old Tanuki. His wife cavorts with other men, leading the clan women into debauchery. As he contemplates the strange smell of sulphur, Lulin enters the room, covered in soot. She scolds her mother and frees Suire, Shishu's other daughter, bound and trembling. As the stronghold shakes, Lulin tells her father to take responsibility. The building is now buried under snow, and Lulin stands regal before her mother, as Shishu clenches his fist, resolved. Lihaku couldn't believe the treacherous Shi clan would rebuild an abandoned fortress and raise an army without it being considered treason. Nevertheless, his duty as a military official was clear. He and his soldiers ambushed the fortress in the snow, using cunning tactics to deceive the guards. They were aided by a magnetic fish that helped them determine their location in the dark. Once inside, they discovered a strange smell and evidence of an explosion. Jinshi, a beautiful eunuch with a willow leaf saber, was also present and refused to leave until a target was found. Lihaku worried about Jinshi's safety, but carried out his orders nonetheless. Jinshi fought the idea of relinquishing his position as leader of the Forbidden Army, even more so since they were launching an ambush. He knew standing at the front would mean giving up his identity as the eunuch Jinshi, thereby disrupting the balance at court. Lihaku couldn't abandon Grand Commandant Khan's daughter, despite it making him a new political enemy. Meanwhile, Maomao found herself witnessing an avalanche and an attack on the fortress where she was held captive. When a soldier appeared in her room, she mistook him for someone else before recognizing it was Jinshi. With Jinshi's help, she hoped to escape the invading forces and avoid any punishment for being an upper consort on the run. Jinshi renounced his title upon the arrival of a royal son. Maomao realized that he couldn't have been just anybody, as only those who share blood with the emperor or have royal orders could enter the rear palace. Lihaku approached Maomao and was shocked to see her. He noticed that she was injured and covered in blood, but he took no notice of her appearance and asked if she was okay. The two noticed sleeping children who were poisoned, and Maomao asked about the fate of those who were executed. Lihaku didn't know, but was moved to take the children and swaddle them before burying them quietly near the graveyard. Lihaku also had a flash of inspiration and proposed that Maomao address the mastermind as Daddy. This suggestion was not received well, and Lihaku quickly apologized. Jinshi and his team successfully execute their mission to apprehend the Shu clan. They enter the fortress and encounter men frantically reloading their guns, but it's too late. The Feifa they were using were meant for several people, and now it's just those men. Some of the Shi members confess to embezzling national funds, while others try to save themselves. They eventually find the former consort and her mother's room, only to find it empty. Jinshi puzzles over the size of the rooms, feeling that something is off. Shishu, the old Tanuki, dies without revealing what he was looking at on the ceiling. Lulan held a complex firearm on him and ordered him to follow her. They arrived at a secret room with Shenmei, Lulan's mother, and a bruised Suire, the palace woman who had come back from the dead. Lulan told a story about the Empress Regnant's plan for the most beautiful ladies to be in the rear palace and a high official's daughter to be held hostage. Pig learns about the Empress Regnant suggested using the rear palace to shelter daughters instead of selling them abroad. Parents prefer their daughters serving in the rear palace for 2 years to avoid slavery. Shishu gained the Empress Regnant's trust, hoping to repair the reputation of the Shi clan. Shenmei felt guilty for selling her daughters and was given to Shishu after he married the former emperor's daughter. The former emperor's choice affected his daughter badly, as Suire was ignored after Lulan was born. Lulan shared the truth about her family, causing a different perspective for Jinshi, as he realized power was all Shishu wanted. The Shu clan was corrupted, and Shishu became a necessary evil that could never be rewarded. Jinshi demanded proof, clenching his fist as he faced accusations of corruption tearing the court apart. Lulan proposed a plan. Even if it failed, they could resort to a coup d'etat. Shenmei was furious at being deceived, but Lulan replied that she did everything for her mother's wishes, including destroying the nation. Suire watched tremblingly as Lulan handed Jinshi a piece of paper, revealing a prediction of something far worse than their rebellion. She then requested that Jinshi overlook any remaining members of their clan. With blood on her hands, Lulan scarred Jinshi's face and bid farewell, laughing as she performed her final act on the snowy rooftop. As Lulan danced lightly among the soldiers firing their weapons, Jinshi couldn't take his eyes off her. Even when she was shot and arrested, he couldn't help but feel captivated by her performance. Exhausted from days of battle, Jinshi finally gets a chance to rest in a carriage, where he finds Maomao sleeping with the dead Shu clan children. Despite her injuries, Jinshi reaches out to her, but is interrupted by Maomao's question. Maomao wakes up to find Jinshi leaning over her, reaching for her collar. She notices a bandage on his face and inspects it. Jinshi reveals he was injured in battle and asks if she was close to Lulan. They discuss the loss of Lulan and their limited understanding of her. Jinshi lies down on the animal skin, and Maomao reminds him it is impure. He grabs her wrist and pulls her close to him, but they are interrupted by a clatter. Jinshi and Maomao hear a strange noise coming from where the children are resting, causing Maomao to investigate. She discovers that one of the children is still alive and remembers a clue from Shisui about a drug that can kill and revive a person. She desperately tries to revive the child, while Jinshi gets supplies. He seems to have a change of heart, but Maomao is too focused on the children to notice. Once the child is revived, Jinshi asks if they can continue their conversation later, to which Maomao agrees, still preoccupied with the children's well-being. The capital was abuzz with excitement as the emperor took a new empress and a new crown prince was presented. Maomao, now without occupation, found herself back in her apothecary's shop grinding herbs. The young apprentice Chu visited her, one of the survivors of the experiments she had saved, experiencing both unconsciousness and paralysis. The children were sent to live with the former consort Arduo, but Chu stayed in the pleasure district, being watched by a friendly guard. Meanwhile, Maomao received letters from Xiaolan, who had moved on to a new position. Shisui was not found after falling off the Stronghold roof, and Maomao teared up at the thought. She needed to find more medicinal ingredients. Maomao found the pleasure district far more challenging than the palace. She suspected Jinshi had left the act of being a eunuch behind, and it wasn't possible to see him easily. After all, they come from different worlds. With no medicines left, she worked all night concocting new drugs. But testing new concoctions was risky, and creating a poison was not what she needed. While preparing to cut herself to test her latest potion, Jinshi suddenly arrived. Maomao couldn't figure out why he had come, but he requested that she fulfill her promise, which was to listen when someone else spoke. After an awkward silence, Jinshi surprised Maomao by biting her gently. Maomao tries to get back to work, but Jinshi has other ideas. He bites down on her neck and Maomao hits him. Finally, Jinshi stops and embraces her. Maomao notices the stitches on his cheek have been redone and wonders if her old man did them. Just then, Seki-u appears with a lizard and a commotion ensues. Maomao offers Jinshi a place to rest and he falls asleep with his head on her knees while she continues with her work. As the festive atmosphere continued, merchants took advantage of it by selling their wares, including a man at an open-air stall. A recent customer walked away with poor taste in earrings, but the merchant's attention was soon drawn to a young woman. She asked about a cicada jewel and offered a hairstick as payment. The merchant accepted and found the hairstick to be a beautiful item. The young woman introduced herself as Tamamo and expressed interest in the ship at port, curious about what lay beyond the sea. With a smile, she ran off towards the dock.